Welcome back, you guys, and this is the WE Magnetron, and it is one that I love. And as soon as I got it in hand, it was one that exceeded my expectations. For one, it's a heavy boy, and when I ordered it, I actually had forgotten how heavy this is. This is a knife that's just over 5 ounces. I really like heavy knives, and this one is one of those knives that when you hold it, you can tell that you have something substantial in your hands. And it's one of those ones that by the weight gives it that feel of quality, not clunkiness. A couple other things that exceeded my expectations of this one was the fit and finish is excellent, and the materials and the design is beautiful in my opinion. So what we have here is a blade that is 20 CV titanium frame lock with bearings and a single side milled titanium pocket clip with a titanium backspacer. We're just going to take a moment, pause the video, and show you some of the stats. The Magnetron comes in a few different varieties, some with satin blade, some with coated blades, and a couple different finishes on the titanium handle. This particular one has the hand rub satin finish blade, which looks just beautiful, and the handle itself is the one with the rose pattern carbon fiber, front and back. So the blade itself is probably one of the best factory edges I've had from a knife in quite some time. It is absolutely razor sharp, and we did a wonderful job sharpening this up. The bevel is almost perfectly even from one side to the other, and I say almost because I can't verify that it's exact, but to my eye it looks dead even from one side to the other. The plunge grind coming down into the finger choil is very well done. It probably comes to about here, and you have all that room left over for some sharpening, which is wonderful. Has a functional forward finger choil where you can get the full meat of your forward finger in there without worrying about the edge biting, the heel of the edge biting your finger. So that's wonderful too. The jimping on the back is nice and grippy, has nice texture to it, and it really grabs your skin, and it is comfortable to plunge your thumb in there. So they did a really good job with that. As well as on the flipper tab itself, has some really nice jimping too, some file-like jimping. It's nice and grabby as well, gives you good traction, and allows you to really deploy that blade with some authority. So one interesting thing with this particular model is that the flipping action, I would have to say, is mediocre. And the big reason behind that is on this model, if you look at where the center of the pivot is and where the flipper tab aligns with that, it is nearly in the center to slightly behind the center line of the pivot. I'm just going to grab my ruler here. If we line it up somewhere along the middle there, you can see maybe a quarter of the flipper tab sticking out from the center line of the pivot. So basically what that means in this case is that it does not give you a lot of leverage before the flipper tab hides behind the scale, the frame of the knife itself. So you need to be pretty intentional to flip it out. If you are intentional, it flips just fine. But if you are kind of lazy and aren't thinking about it too much, you can fail it. So just something to note. Light switch method with a little bit of authority flies out just fine. Push button, it's a little bit on the lazy side. And like I said, if you're kind of lazy with the flipping, it can fail. but you put a little bit of effort into it, and with that grippy flipper tab, it does deploy no problem. Just love the hand rub satin finish that WE does, and this one has the horizontal rub satin finish on it, and it looks wonderful. Very sharp blade, clip point style blade, very pointy, stabby tip. So not the strongest, most reinforced tip, but very effective in piercing tasks for sure. Moving back onto the handle, it is a larger knife, and there is plenty of room for larger hands to grip this comfortably. And you can see it has fairly neutral lines, a little bit of a peak here, but for the most part it just nestles into your hand very nicely. It's comfortable, bearing down. Do not feel any hot spots from the frame or from the clip. Just the way the clip kind of comes up and around, nestles nicely into the palm of your hand, and so you don't really feel it when you are holding the knife. And of course, if you go to the go forward position, plenty of room behind that for larger hands as well. We got a nice plain stylized pivot with a chrome pivot ring, and coming around on the other side here, you got the same matching pivot ring on the back side. Got T8 hardware all the way around, and you can see that again, single side position pocket clip, and if I'm not mistaken, this screw will go through to the other side and hold that pocket clip in place. And then the detail, as I mentioned before, is just amazing on this one. You can see within the frame there that they have micro milled lines, and then the rose pattern carbon fiber in this particular model perfectly flush to the frame and just gives a nice attractive sheen. And of course you got those speed holes, which I like that WE has had some consistency with its models, kind of going with a 3 speed hole theme. You see it on the Neferis, you see it on the Nexusia, you see it on the 601, a few other models, and I just like that consistency. And each of them has their own flair, or they're applied in their own style, so they're unique from each other. And this one is no exception. The speed holes in this one are all nicely polished out, and they just look nice and shiny. Really attractive look in this case. And even so, with those speed holes, no milling on the inside, but there will be obviously they will have made space to inset the carbon fiber on front and back. So there will be a little bit of weight relieving there, but like I said, at just over 5 ounces, this does remain a bit of a hefty knife. Excellent access to the lock bar. You can get in there and disengage the blade, no problem. Lock bar insert and over travel stop there. And amazing how well it's fitted even on the backside. There's a lot of designs that don't bother to add the same type of pattern or inlay from the show side over to the lock bar side, but in this case they kind of went full out and managed to integrate those just so nicely. Love that. This is one that goes in and out of the pocket really nicely. You can see that the pocket clip here clears the lock bar cutout, so there's going to be less chance of that hanging up on your pants when you go to grab your knife. So that is really nice. And then on the back side, you kind of have a halfway titanium back spacer with, again, the matching 3-hole design and a couple stylized lines in there, and then there's your spot for your lanyard on the back. So this is one of the more fully kitted out, fully treated WE knives that they made available in 2023, and I think they executed it so well, and I just really enjoy all the style points on this knife, and I think that the overall design from front to back flows really nicely. So we got some really nice edge geometry, razor sharp blade, straight from factory, excellent ergonomics, excellent fit and finish. And one of the things that this also has is wonderful acoustics, especially on the close, how the lock bar interfaces with the blade. When you close it, it has a nice little ting to it. Generally very difficult to pick up on camera, but when you are playing around with this knife, the open and especially on the close just has a nice ring to it. All right, so let's roll it up against a couple of other knives for size comparison. We're going to start off with the Chavez 229 Redemption, the full-size Tanto. Pretty close. The WE would be just a little bit longer than the 229. Another knife that has some amazing acoustics. WE Zone 601. Pardon me, the 601X. Very close in size, but the Magnetron does edge it out just a little bit. And if you see my video on this one, this is a perfect example of a masterfully engineered flipper tab. And you can see on this one that the pivot itself is, the flipper tab is quite far ahead of the pivot. And this is one that you just can't fail even if you try, and just flies out with authority. So a little bit difference between the two there. Couple budget models. One of my favorite affordable knives, the Sencut Glide Strike, larger knife as well. These will be pretty close from end to end in size. Great budget model there. Of course, Sencut is cousin to WE Knives. And then lastly, the CJRB Large Pyrite. Another wonderful, well done budget model. Overall, the WE Magnetron, in my opinion, is beautifully made. It looks beautiful, and most certainly it is far more attractive in person than it is in photos or other videos, which is really impressive. Materials, so nice, and the execution of how they put the knife together, especially with the inlays and that beautiful rose pattern carbon fiber, just looks amazing. This was probably, for me, one of the most exciting WE knives that they have released in the last couple of years, and something that I was super excited to get my hands on. And like I mentioned earlier, it is one that I am so in love with and had exceeded my expectations, and really enjoy having it in the collection. And just a super comfortable, ergonomic, functional knife. So well done job by WE Knives. Thank you guys for dropping by. Always appreciate your time, and we will see you in the next one.